Hello everyone, welcome to Game Brigade. My name is Brian Greer, and today we're going to be talking about Tainted Grail, Kings of Ruin. If you are looking for some more information regarding Kings of Ruin, maybe you're interested in my thoughts regarding my experiences playing this prototype, as you consider your pledge, this video is for you. So if you're looking for that, stay tuned for more. First off, I want to say thank you to Into the Am for sponsoring my video. I'm so grateful that they decided to support my show, keep me going, help me try to make this a full-time career. Today, I am rocking the full black shirt they have. It's just a basic black tee. It's got their logo here. I generally wear this when I'm either going to the gym or sleep shirts. They are extremely comfortable, and I would highly recommend checking them out. Right now, they have a bundle where you can save $15 off of a bundle of 3 shirts. There are some Halloween specials, so check that out as well. Using my discount code BOARDGAME will save you 10% off site-wide. It also stacks on their current bundle deal. So check it out. Really appreciate the support if you do decide to find something. So, Kings of Ruin. What are my thoughts? Where am I at? And is this a game I would recommend backing versus getting Tainted Grail the original, or should you get both? I'm hoping that I can answer that question at the end of the video. Today we're going to be diving into this game, this prototype that I have here, and kind of talk about my experiences, the things I liked, the things I didn't like, the things that I wish they could have done a little better. First off, full disclaimer, while I do own Tainted Grail and I really enjoy this narrative storyline system, this is not something I have actually dived into, and I'll tell you why. Tainted Grail was a game that I really wanted. I love the idea of it, but so many complaints and problems have arisen over the basic components, not the components, but the mechanics regarding the menus that are in the middle of the game that kind of that are kind of like a focal point of the whole system, where people and friends of mine had to basically give me their house rules on how they made the game playable, to the point that some people were completely skipping scenarios or skipping encounters, completely changing the game to fit their needs. Now, I don't think that's a problem if it makes a game playable, but I generally try to play games as close to the way the publisher designed the game for all intents and purposes. So, Tainted Grail has been one that I have been leery of. Not that I don't want to play it, but I've just been hesitant to dive in. Kings of Ruin has promised to fix that problem. They're going to change the mechanisms regarding the menus, change the system, how the Wyrdness works, and overall remove the grindiness that was experienced in Tainted Grail, Fall of Avalon, and hopefully bring more of an enjoyment from the storyline components. Did they succeed? Kinda. There are parts of this game that are still extremely grindy or remove me from that experience, and I want to talk about it. But let's first talk about the core gameplay mechanics to see if it's something that you might enjoy. See, Kings of Ruins and the whole Tainted Grail story is going to be taking place in a region or a land that King Arthur has gone to, Avalon, where they are trying to settle and be, move their people to this region. And there's some things that have happened in the past with this region. There's a lot of weird stuff that's happened, and this weirdness, and it's hard to explain what weirdness is. From what I've learned in the story, it's a weird mist fog that can warp and change people and mostly disfigure them in some ways. The way I kind of associated to with something like Silent Hill, but Silent Hill was more horror, while this seems more just kind of weird and grotesque in some ways. But it is interesting because there are still people in civilization taking place out in the world, so you are going to be encountering people who somehow have managed to adapt to the Wyrdness and be a part of it. I'm not going to go into any details regarding anything like that in case you do play to this, and I don't want to spoil anything. But from that, they have changed a lot of the mechanisms with this in terms of the way the Wyrdness works. In the original Tainted Grail, the cards were basically double-sided, and one was more zoomed in to try to give you clues. Now the cards are reversible, and you have a Wyrdness side, and then you have a clear side. And what's really interesting is your characters can actually traverse through the Wyrdness and experience different parts of the story, or unlock or find different things that are sometimes might not be findable through the normal means, which is pretty cool. I really like the option that you can venture into the weirdness and potentially find something that you might not have otherwise. So through the game, what's the game like? Did I move the thing? I did. I put it over here. So what's the game? Players are going to take control. I believe there's going to be 4 characters that are going to be released within the Tainted, the Kings of Ruin game. Right now, we were featured with 2. We have Wyrdness and we have Elgin. Elgin being a diplomatic candle maker, and Wyrdness is a combat-focused shield wall. She's a soldier. She was part of a group of people that were an elite military force. I played Wyrdness for this. I generally gravitate towards characters that are more combat focused in most types of campaign or adventure-like gaming, although I wouldn't mind seeing more diplomatic options, and we'll talk about how the diplomatic and combat system works as well. So players have a system of energy that they will utilize to complete different actions. Now, basically you have on your player board here in the center a ring that shows how much energy you have, and every action potentially can cost you an energy or more based on the circumstances. If you look at the board here, you'll see that this one requires 2 energy to complete whatever action. So if you want to do it, you just reduce your energy by 2, and then you complete the said action that's on the board. But there's a bunch of different things you can do. If you want to move, it costs an energy. Exploration, though, is free, and when you explore, you will pull up your book here, which will then have information regarding what you're going to want to do regarding those locations. Now, I'm not going to show any of this because I don't want to spoil anything, but effectively you will read it, it'll tell you what your options can do, and then it's going to tell you to go to different verses within the story that you can complete. And this is part of the choose your own adventure-like system that is featured within this game. And I will say, it is very interesting the way they have designed this game, where your decisions and your actions throughout the different portions of the game will influence different parts of the game, sometimes minorly, sometimes pretty heavily, as you influence yourself in the population that's part of this world, some of the maybe the ruling factions or the warring factions that are involved in this realm. Different things you do, even as much as like picking up a piece of trash that you found might influence later, thinking that what you found was trash might have been someone's treasure. So there's interesting things they do with that. Now, I don't have, here's one. I don't really want to show too much, but an example of how you market. When you complete an activity, even something mundane, it might tell you to gain a status, like the Curio status or the Smart Thinker Part 2 status, something like that. And you'll mark it on the sheet. When you're progressing through the game, it'll say, if you have Smart Thinker Part 3, do this, otherwise read on. So things that you've done will influence the game, and I really appreciate that stuff. And there were times when we played the game, we're like, man, when could we have gotten that status? What did we miss along the line? And so it's interesting to think that there are vastly different things back further within the story that you missed. So that is pretty much the main sequence of actions that you're going to be doing. There are more refined things, and we're going to dive into that right now. I'm going to push some of these components to the side. And the main one I want to talk about are the encounter systems. Now, I had, here we go. I had a card for an example for this. So in the encounter system, there's 2 types of encounters that we can generally run into that are basically going to resolve in us playing a mini game of a deck building and card playing game. So in this example, I have a white elk, and white elk is a green encounter. You can tell by the back of the card, it has a green icon on the bottom. There is also a purple encounter and blue encounter, and I find that they're more themed towards either magic or spiritual or animals based on their card deck. So here we have a white elk. This is a combat encounter. You can also run into diplomatic encounters. In fact, I can pull one out, see if I can find one for an example. See if I have one. I don't think I have one there. Of course, I should have had this all pre-planned. Plus, I don't want to like spoil anything. You know, it's hard to find someone. You know, man, it's funny because some of these things, I'm like, man, when would I have seen this? A diplomatic encounter will have a chart that has a board here on the side representing the different types of statuses that you must reach as you reach through it. But they're both very similar. They do utilize two different decks. You have the diplomatic deck and you have your combat deck. As I played Gerdwin, I pretty much focused on upgrading my combat deck as it was what my focus was. So how does the game work? How does this mini game work? Well, you're going to draw 3 cards. I'll just take these 3. And you're going to play them in a sequence. You're going to play them down here, connecting them to these different icons. And these icons are also going to be based off your player board and what you've leveled up. So I currently have 2 aggression, 1 courage, and 2 practicality. So if you're looking at the board, sometimes like this icon has 2 aggression symbols. So for me to then link up with an ability, let me see if I have one that actually does something like that. For example, this one, I have to have leveled up 2 aggression to be able to utilize that ability. And so what does that mean? Well, when you link things up and you have a corresponding ability that matches it, you're going to do what the icon says in the box. For example, this would be a bonus action if I were doing one. Then we have a damage cube, and then down here, a damage cube times 1. So that would be just 2 damage placed on this character. And then if I wanted to play this card on top of this, I could do this, which would then deal another damage. And then because I'm taking a second action, I have to play a bonus card. And this one leaves me with the 2 courage slot. I don't have 2 courage, so I couldn't utilize that system. But I could play something down here, potentially, if I had a bonus action to keep going. And then in the middle is a ability that this card will trigger when it is played, or something along those lines. And then once that's done, it goes to the opponent, who they will do whatever their response is. In this case, with having 3 cubes, I would lose 1 energy and reduce that. And then it would go to either the other player in the party to do what they want to do, or would come back to me, in which case I would draw a card to my hand from my now 1 cards based on the 2 cards I played. And you keep going till either you kill it, or you need to run away, or you would take damage and potentially perish. So that is the mechanics of the combat system. And the diplomatic system is essentially the same, but you're going to be using your empathy, your caution, or your spirituality, playing them in the same situation, lining them up along their triggers, and then trying to raise a meter to either green, gray, or red, depending on the situation, to within a time limit as well. Usually they're timed, so that you can get a reward or complete the storyline. The deck building portion of the game, of this portion, is you are allowed to have 10 of these cards in your deck at any given time through the scenario. You have the ability to upgrade your cards. You have these advancement pools where you can spend 2 experience points to look at the top 3 cards of the advancement pool and add one of these cards to your deck, removing 1 from that. So you have basic cards. There are cards that are secret cards that you can enter into your deck, and then you have all your advancement pool cards. And so as you go through, you can modify this deck to kind of utilize the different types of combinations or whatever that you have formed as you move through the game. Same thing with the diplomatic status. You can spend 2 to add a card from the advancement pool into your diplomatic deck. Again, keeping 10 maximum, keeping the other ones to the side. So for example, these are the ones that I had removed from my deck, and just keep to the side. But you can always go back to them and add them in during a rest action. If there's like something that's not working, or if you want to change it up, you can add cards in and pull other ones out as well. So that is the game. Players are going to be working their way through these different locations, lighting these waystones, which actually what utilize to flip all these territories so that they're on the clear side, and eventually finding their quest. Now, there is a quest that you're going to be given based on the chapter that you're on. Again, I'm not going to show these things to spoil anything. In fact, I have all these all over the place. You have these quests and chapters that are going to be revealed, and have different things for you to be actively working towards on this quest. And then there are random encounters that will be triggering each day you do a rest action, and the next day you'll be doing a random encounter. And these can vary from really good things to really bad things, depending on how that day is going. So, what are my thoughts regarding Kings of Ruin, and if it's something that I would recommend? Right off the bat, I generally like to say this, but again, I'm going to dive into some more details regarding my thoughts and processes of why I want to say this. I want to say that Kings of Ruin, right now in this prototype state that I've played, is a good game. But it's not a great game, and there's things that hold it up for me that keep it from being a truly incredible experience. Now, I will say we played 2 chapters of this prototype, and the second chapter, we played it for about 5 or 5.5 hours straight to get through the whole thing, and really enjoyed our experience and our time through that. And it was interesting that we really didn't notice the time until it got to about 2 or 3 in the morning. We're like, whoa, this is taking a lot longer than we thought, and we need to wrap it up. So it's great that the game is so enjoyable and so enthralling that you can lose track of time and keep going as you're wanting to complete the chapter sequencing. But there are situations that I feel hinder the overall flow of the situation or the system, and sometimes pull me out of the entire experience that I'm playing in. And what is that? Well, it is the encounter system. Now, I have here a fairly basic animal. It is not too hard for you to fight. And in fact, I actually do have some levels up here in terms of my skills, where I leveled up this aggression. So things would be a little bit worse in terms of my combat card ability to play things. But what did I not care for with the encounter system? The thing that really drove me nuts and really made this a hard thing for me to enjoy was the fact that there were times, and more than one, that this occurred where you draw your 3 cards, you reveal it, and you look at it and you say, wow, there is literally nothing that I can do here to affect this creature, and we're going to take damage. Like, if I don't have a way to deal damage, like for example, I have this kind of thing, which just draws me a card, and then if I don't have another thing that triggers off of this, because maybe these are all 2s, for example, like this might work actually, like something like this would work. Actually, it doesn't, because it's not a bonus card. It would have to be a bonus. So this would be a situation where with my hand, I actually can't play any of these cards because they are no bonuses and nothing can deal damage. So I would then take 3 damage from this creature, and it would go to the next player. These things are frustrating, and they're not fun, and sometimes the encounter can go for 10 to 15 minutes for something that's just a minor inconvenience, because when you're there it says resolve a green encounter every time you go here, and you're like, come on, man, this is a grind. And it did get to the point, even in this prototype, where we're like, you want to just skip the white elk or whatever. We fought it 15 times. Like, let's just keep going. And that's kind of unfortunate to say that this is something we have experienced even in this prototype. But I think it could be, fixed if either the mechanics of the card system were altered and changed in some way, or if it was improved where the decks were more forgiving or something for early play, especially the basic decks. Maybe they're not so good, but they're able to do something, and the advancement cards will have better comboing abilities but require more level up. That's the other thing I want to talk about, is because it relies on your level up. Here in this situation, I only have 1 caution. So if I'm in a diplomatic situation, there's not much that I can do to influence the vote or raise the stats of a character that I'm trying to talk to before the time limit expires. And so it just, it might be thematic, it might be part of the experience of playing the game, and it's not a forgiving game, but it is an unfun mechanic. And as a gamer who is here to play for fun, I try to steer clear of unfun things. But the game itself is fun. It is, in fact, it's incredibly fun. Reading the journal here as we went through different situations and experiencing different parts of the story was incredibly fun and enjoyable. So it's hard to say that this game is not fun, because I'll tell you it is. It's an incredible experience. But for me, the combat encounters for both, well, the combat and diplomatic encounters were just really bad in terms of I wish they were something else entirely if they possibly could. But maybe I'm in the minority in that thought process. What did I think of the writing? And this is something I want to talk about, because so many times I play a campaign game, and the thing that drives me up the wall is the poor writing of the characters, especially written dialogue. So many times people have a hard time writing dialogue or making it believable that this is how a character might act in a situation. And I can give you confidence and say that in terms of the story beats and the way the game carries itself, the writing in Kings of Ruin is very, very good. I was very impressed. In fact, I wanted to keep reading, and there was times where the way it describes a situation is so visceral and real that I almost could like feel myself part of it. I'm like reading a book. And that was actually another criticism I potentially had, was because I was reading this. Again, we played a 2-player game. It basically became at times story time with Bryan. Now, I do think that this will be fixed, because there's going to be an app associated with the game that will read the story to you. But there were times where you're reading this, and it can go on for sometimes 15 minutes of me just reading out loud. And I don't know if my audience is listening to me. I don't know if they're enjoying what I'm doing or my inflections in my voice. But again, I have to read. And so yesterday, again, like I said, I read for 5.5 hours through this campaign. Now, that's not really a problem. I'm just wanting to make sure it is something I felt and experienced. I was like, man, this is a lot of reading in single goes between story times. And I could see some people who are not confident reading out loud or reading in a group of people not enjoying that aspect. So, but again, that might be a prototype aspect, because I believe the app should be out by the time the game is ready for launch. So overall, what did I think? Again, the storyline was great. I love diving into the different types of situations. The stories were cool. The secret items are so much fun. I loved exploring the Wyrdness and taking a risk to go into it and seeing what I could find within there, and then being rewarded with some secret items. And while I didn't read all of these secret items, I did kind of peer through it to be like, what did I miss? And it's incredible. Not only is there the secret item deck here that has a bunch of stuff, there's also a larger deck of secret items that can customize your board, customize your character through decks, or have different types of creatures that you might encounter throughout the system. So, my recommendation between Tainted Grail, obviously I haven't played this one, and Kings of Ruin, would I recommend this, and what would I tell someone who asked me, because this happens all the time actually, more than you think, what should I do? Do I buy this? Do I buy this? Or do I buy both? I think in my recommendation, I think Kings of Ruin is where I would start with if you had neither copy. Now, there is a 2.0 update pack for Tainted Grail that does support and supposedly correct some of the problems that the system has to bring it more in line to what Kings of Ruin is producing and providing here, with a little bit minor changes, because there's still mechanics that are different between the two. If you are an owner of the Tainted Grail Fall of Avalon and you haven't played it, I wouldn't put it past you to pick this up, but also pick up the 2.0 so that you can make this playable. I think they'd be totally fine. In fact, that's what I plan on doing, because I do want to make this playable, and the fact that releasing a 2.0 portion will be great. But do I think you need both? There's a lot more content in Tainted Grail. You can get a lot more stuff out of this. But this is going to be featuring, I believe, 10 chapters within the story of the Kings of Ruin as you go through the different things. It's almost like it's enough. I mean, for $120, whatever the price of the pledge may be, I think this is probably going to be sated and get you in a place where you're going to enjoy the system and enjoy the story without being too much. I know so many people who bought this, got the all-in of Tainted Grail, and then only played the base game, and they didn't even touch all the other campaigns. So is it really a big issue trying to get more when this one might just be the most refined version of the two? That's why my recommendation is for Kings of Ruin prototype. Kings of Ruin prototype. Yeah, Ryan, good job. But yes, I did enjoy my time. I had a great time. I wish the combat system was better. But overall, it didn't detract me to the point where I played 8.5 hours in almost a single seating of the Kings of Ruin game here to try to experience this and get through it and enjoy it. So hopefully this first impressions helped you guys make a decision. I would love to know. Leave me a comment down below. Remember, if you're part of the community and you're part of the family, leave a wolf emoji. That way I know you guys made it to the end, because you guys are part of my family. And if you really want to support me, please check out Into the AM. Pick something up and find something that fancies you, because I would really appreciate the support and the continued sponsorship from Into the AM. It would be great. So that's it. I'm going to let this go. This is Bryan from Game Brigade. I will talk to you all later. Bye.